We've got news about Terrifier 2 and 3?
Guess what? After Flanagan finishes the sequel to The Shining, he's doing another haunting for Netflix.
John Krasinski is returning to direct A Quiet Place 2.
And Blumhouse have decided to change writers again for another Michael Myers movie.
All that and more on this week's Horror Show News with Booze! Hey everyone, I'm Cecil Laird.
Jaime Fuego here!
And this is your Horror Show News. Now, I just want to give you guys a heads up. Everyone reacted very well to the last one we did with our cold open and everything, so obviously we replicated that. We'll try and keep doing that going forward, but some of you guys said that you enjoyed us doing just sort of the laid-back version of the news, Sports Center style with the stories on the side. And a lot of you preferred the new old format. So what we're going to do is we're going to do both, essentially. We're going to do the stories like we did in the new format from last time, and then after that we'll go ahead and jump into our opinions, and you guys can choose whether you want to stick around for that. We'll do the stories on the side again, all that good stuff, so everyone can have their cake and eat it too, because we kind of wanted to give our opinion last time, we just ran out of time. So
in the words of Tally, I choose both.
So here we go, let's get into it. In my top story today, we got official confirmation not very long ago that we are indeed getting a sequel to the gory, love it or hate it hit of 2018, Terrifier. This was confirmed recently on the Facebook page of the original creator of Art the Clown and writer-director of the first film, Damien Leone, where he said that the script was not only complete, but that it was insane. He didn't provide any further info beyond just this picture and those few words, except to say that they're trying to bring us the sequels as soon as possible, and that he's excited to show us where Art's diabolical journey goes from here. Now, the man behind the mask, Art the Clown himself, David Howard Thornton, said that he has read the script and that we're in for some real treats and some tricks. Now, of course, as a quote-unquote reporter, I had to make use of my time while we were in Mad Monster Charlotte this past weekend, and I actually spoke with Mr. Leone and Mr. Thornton themselves about the film, and Damien may have let slip that not only is the full script for the second movie done, but he may just have written a few pages of Terrifier 3. Now, I may have misheard him. I didn't. But if that is indeed the case, that means that Art himself and his proud papa are determined to cement this character's legacy as one of the pantheon of psychotic killer clowns of all film history. And at the very least, if that is indeed the case, we'll all be able to agree that Art the Clown is way more interesting to watch than the walking wall that is Michael Myers. Right, Scream Streamers?
And in my top story, last year's The Haunting of Hill House was a surprise smash success for the sheer fact that it showed horror could still have heart, even if it proceeded to rip ours out immediately afterwards as well. Despite writer-director Mike Flanagan confirming that the story of the Crane family is indeed over, Netflix's renewal of the show for another anthology second season entitled The Haunting of Bly Manor does prove that there are still many hauntific stories yet to be told. The July 4th, 2020 arrival will see the new series become the third upcoming adaptation of Henry James' The Turning of the Screw, joining a freeform TV series and upcoming film called The Turning starring Mackenzie Davis and Finn Wolfhard, showing that, this new incarnation definitely has a steep hill to climb, if it's going to live up to the success of its predecessor.
You're fired. In my next story, fans of another 2018 hit, A Quiet Place, also got some good news this month. Not only did we get specific confirmation that Emily Blunt is indeed returning to reprise her role from the first film, but we also got confirmation that John Krasinski himself, who did act in the first movie as well as directing it, will be returning to helm the sequel. Krasinski said in a relatively cryptic tweet, adding a screenshot from the first film, "Time to go back. #part 2. Millicent Simmons and Noah Jupe, who played the kids of Emily Blunt and Krasinski's characters in the first film, are also in talks to return to reprise their roles, but no official deals have been struck as of this recording. But as far as Krasinski returning, that means that any of us that were concerned about what might happen were the sequel to be passed off to different hands, now we know and we can rest assured that it's going to be in the very same capable fingers as the first film. In fact, you might even say he'll have more time to focus on directing this time around, considering he won't have to split his time with his acting duties. But in any case, we all know that the theaters coming May of 2020 will be anything but a quiet place.
Yeah. And in my next story, as if the fury of remake haters wasn't foul enough, now a band of the most beloved 80s bloodsuckers have seemingly drawn their line in the bloody California sand about their intended tone for an upcoming series. Now, the Lost Boys turning to television does not seem like automatic sacrilege, especially with the likes of awesome reimaginings we got from Hannibal and The Exorcist, but it seems pretty obvious what they're going for now, as the CW has chosen none other than Catherine Hardwicke to helm the pilot. The director was responsible and guilty of helming the first film in the Twilight series that defanged vampires for an entire audience of tweens in the new millennium. So, despite hopes that we were going to get something more along the lines of Buffy or Supernatural, it appears that there is far more to be scared of in Santa Carla than just the Corys being turned into sisters.
And in my next story, apparently the people behind the Critters intellectual property had the same idea as the Chucky camp, because not only are we getting the 8-episode series going straight to Shudder that actually the trailer just recently dropped for, but now it's apparently been confirmed that we are getting an actual movie that Sci-Fi secretly shot recently in South Africa as well. Not only that, but the main actress that we've heard involved is none other than Dee Wallace, who was the lead actress from the original Critters movie. Now, that's not to say necessarily that this is going to be a direct sequel. It's not been confirmed one way or another, but that's one of the main differences between Critters and Chucky. The Chucky movie, the Child's Play movie, is going to be a total reboot. There is no word on whether or not this Sci-Fi Critters movie is going to be a reboot or a long-term continuation, like some film franchises have been doing recently. But with Dee's involvement, obviously one tends to lean a particular direction on that. So hopefully it is a long-term sequel. So which are you going to be more excited about? A possible sequel to the long-dormant franchise helmed by the man behind The Cleanse, or the 8-episode series that is going straight to Shudder from the people behind Zombievers? I don't know for sure, but I think the real answer is either way, we win.
And in my next story, The Walking Dead became synonymous with popular culture for its unflinching insensitivity to kill off its beloved characters. However, lately, we are seeing numbers thinning more so from actors leaving of their own volition instead of decisions from the writer's room. Losing both of the Grimes boys, then Maggie, definitely took a bite out of the show's once monstrous ratings. But now, another fan favorite is about to depart as none other than Michonne, played to badass perfection by Denai Guerrera, will be exiting sometime during season 10. Now, there's no word whether it's going to go down as an out-of-comic book context death like we saw with Carl, or if it's going to leave the door wide open for another adventure in the film world with her ride or die Rick, but it's evident and obvious to say that this is only further damage with the lack of her presence on screen to a show that many feel is stumbling around on its last legs.
And in my final story, it appears that money is better down where it's wetter, take it from me. Or at least that's the Warner Bros. Motto, as they officially announced that they're going to be riding Aquaman's fishtails all the way into the horror genre. How, you ask? By focusing in on the only possibly scary bit in the film that just released, that of course is breaking all kinds of records, and homing in on it in a horror direction. That's right, apparently the studio wants to make an entire film surrounding the creatures known as the Trench, that Aquaman and Mera had to make their way through in order to achieve one of their ultimate goals in the Aquaman feature. But not only do they want to make an entire film around these creatures, they want to somehow do it without any of the characters from the Aquaman film. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I suppose if it's just a seafaring horror movie where these creatures are the antagonists, it could ultimately work. So as someone that has loved these creatures since they debuted in the 2011 Aquaman comic book series written by Jeff Johns, I would of course be on board for a movie surrounding them, but it just has to make sense. Ultimately, I predict that this was a studio's knee-jerk reaction to the immediate success of the Aquaman movie and wanting to just cash in on it in any way possible. But considering that it's officially been announced that Aquaman 2 is indeed in pre-production, although James Wan has not signed on officially to direct yet, I believe that this decision will probably ultimately fall by the wayside in lieu of just developing Aquaman 2 fully instead. Hopefully I'll be proven wrong though, and we'll be able to get some terror deep down under the sea. Under the sea. Darling, blood's redder, down where it's wetter, take it from me. Or don't call the police on me.
And in my final story, while it's been contentiously debated about whether the recent greatest hits record that was Halloween 2018 was actually any good, dum-dums, it's undeniable the box office behemoth that the film became, especially by my homie Cecil Laird. And even if we all know that lightning rarely strikes twice, it does seem rather strange to alter a successful formula, ask Happy Death Day to you about that, by bringing in a different writer to take a stab at the upcoming sequel. There's no doubt with the supposed return of a surprisingly surviving entire trio of Strode ladies paired with the slasher power of none other than Michael Myers, swing, swing, that this film will once again carve up the box office. However, bringing in Scott Teems, who is currently writing the Firestarter remake for Jason Blum, seems really to this reporter like them just picking somebody they can pay less money to. I said, whose house? Blum's house!
So that's going to do it for this week's stories, you guys. Now we're going to go ahead and jump into our opinions, which, Fuego, you know that means we can get a little bit looser up over here, not worry as much about everything, and we're just going to give our opinions. So my top story was, of course, the fact that we are getting a Terrifier 2 officially. So I am excited about that, obviously. I'm one of the big proponents of the first one. I love Art the Clown. And I'm really excited to see more of him, not only in 2, but possibly in 3 as well.
Yeah, and it was very cool getting to hear it straight from the clown's mouth, and also the creators as well, talking with Damien and David about it. I didn't adore the film, but I saw just the iconic nature of the performance especially. I love the gore that they brought. It was really the performance from the actresses that I was less enamored with. They were pretty and everything, but they just didn't really stick out as much as, you know, just Art and just the way he elevated the character so much from the original All Hallows Eve sketch and stuff. So I'm definitely all for that film, and, you know, seeing what sort of craziness with the way they were talking it up, man, they've got a reputation to live up to. But yeah, I'm stoked to see where it all goes, obviously.
Absolutely, me too. Yeah, they did mention that they are upping their game and that it's going to be nuts. So I was really excited to hear that, and you know, I just can't wait to see where it goes from here.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, we were talking with them, specifically Damien at one point the first night we arrived, about how sequels always got to double down, like the Aliens T2 approach sort of thing. And yeah, if that's any indication, man, I can only fathom what they're going to bring as far as nastiness goes.
Exactly. So what do you got?
So my top story is the fact that Hill House is returning, but not as Hill House, obviously. It's just going to be another haunting series, and Mike Flanagan once again developing, presumably writing, but no confirmation about directing yet, because he directed every single episode, and with a few specifically, he brought such an amazing visual presence. I mean, that tracking shot that just kept going and going and going for practically the entire episode.
Well, there was 4 shots in that whole
yeah,
episode.
It was one of the best things I've ever seen, like not just on television, but like ever as far as filmmaking goes. And it's called The Haunting of Bly Manor, and the interesting thing is that it's going to be the 3rd property in the next year or so that's going to be adapting Henry James's The Turning of the Screw. It's been adapted previously as films, as stage plays. It's about this governess that basically goes to be like a nanny of sorts for these 2 kids, and she's under the impression that the place she is staying at is haunted. The Freeform TV series, I could give 2 craps about that, but the one that I'm especially interested in, it's called The Turning, and it comes out next year, and it has Mackenzie Davis, who I love, and then Finn Wolfhard as one of the kids. So it's kind of a crowded boat that they're jumping onto, and Amblin Entertainment is the one who's actually developing The Turning, and then they also are the ones who did the TV show, and they're going to be doing this new TV show. So I'm guessing Mike must have a drastically different approach that he's taking, kind of like what he did with Hill House. So I don't know, man. What do you think about the possibilities for the quality here?
I don't think they're going to be able to reach the level of the first one, because I don't think Flanagan's going to want to commit to another thing that he has to direct every episode of again. I'm sure he's going to want to move on to do something else. So he might do an episode or two and then sort of just guide the whole thing, but
like a showrunner sort of.
yeah, but I mean, I'm on board for the story of an entire haunting taking place over 10 episodes. I mean, it that's what worked about The Exorcist TV show for me, both seasons, and I mean, I like that sort of stuff, so I think it could absolutely work as long as it's done right. So it just has to be done right.
I feel it, yeah, but I agree. I don't think it's going to capture the same success, especially if he's only a showrunner kind of guider as opposed to just having that amazing touch, which we got in so many of those episodes. So
now, what do you think about the fact that we're getting an official return of Krasinski behind the camera to direct A Quiet Place 2?
I'm stoked. He was originally only going to be writing it, and now he directed the hell out of that movie, which really surprised me with his comedic background and everything. And now he's jumping into being an action hero, and he's really a jack of all trades. He's married to Emily Blunt, so that's like a superstar power couple pairing. There was a lot of people that were originally speculating it was going to take the anthology route. It was going to tell a completely different story, different family, whatever. So the return of Blunt and presumably the kids as well that haven't signed on yet. I was down for either, you know. So this is just as cool for me. And yeah, I mean, there's many stories to be told within this universe. I thought the creatures were dope. Yeah, I'm pumped, man. It's not going to be a quiet theater, like you said. Or actually, it probably will, because when we saw that movie, it was like everybody was so captivated and engaged. It was silent as hell, man.
Yeah.
You hear a pin drop.
Yeah, that's true. I guess my joke kind of doesn't make sense. Thanks for pointing that out, Fuego.
I didn't mean to.
But no, nonetheless, I'm really excited. Obviously, getting the same talent behind the second movie from the first movie is always a great option. I think in most cases the best option. But yeah, I mean, he can't be on camera, so he can focus on stuff behind the camera. And I imagine we will meet new people in this, even though it won't be entirely about a new family. So I'm very interested to see how it goes. I think if they've brought Emily Blunt, they've got to do what they need to get the kids back too.
Absolutely.
And I think that'll be sort of chump change for the studio at this point, because they're both so new. So
yeah, it's going to be all about world expansion is what I'm guessing. The only thing that I find interesting, I don't find it worrisome, but I find it interesting, is the fact that this was on the blacklist, the script or whatever, that's the term, right? It was floating around for a few years before it finally got made. That writing team is not the ones who are doing this. It's the Happy Death Day to You mentality, where the director is now going to be writing it and playing in the playground which other people fashioned.
Right.
So, I mean, I think Krasinski knows this world very well, and I think the success rate is definitely very high, especially with so much of the returning talent. So
I don't think he would have taken on the job if he didn't think he had a good story to tell.
Yeah, and he had the idea. He's like, I have an idea for a story, and I'm ready to run with it. So
cool.
So curious as far as how they're going to run with this Lost Boys TV series. Now, it's not been ordered to series yet. That's the one thing about this probably being the smallest story in the confines of this entire news segment, and the fact that it's only been ordered to pilot. So pilots don't always get picked up. It happens all the goddamn time. But Catherine Hardwicke, I feel like, really just, as I said, draws the line in the bloody sand about the tone that they're going for with this. They're going very tweeny. They're going the type of CW stuff that I don't like. You know, there's some stuff like Supernatural and, you know, Buffy, which was on the WB, which then morphed into the CW. Those are the exceptions to the rule for a lot of CW programming, in my estimation. Although I haven't watched Riverdale, I haven't watched iZombie. I guess they do have a decent track record, but I feel personally there's more misses than hits. Do you think, even with her at the helm, to set a tone initially, this still could be good?
I know. No, I don't. I think they're making a lot of weird choices. I mean, I don't mind the Frog Sisters thing as much. I think, okay, if you're going to change something, change that, because it was a main boy and two boy helpers, you know, and a comic relief little girl.
Yeah.
I think it could be. I think that could be mixed up a little bit. That's fine, but I'm just not a fan of the Twilight stuff. So I think if that's the indication that they're going for, I mean, it is, again, CW, and that's what they do. They sort of sexy teenaged up Teen Wolf, but I really enjoyed that because they kept it grounded in a lot of horror stuff. So
that was MTV, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, but I guess
they still went for. I mean, that's kind of the
I'm just likening to it because it's the most horror thing that is close enough to a vampire show.
Yeah, no.
I mean, there was the Vampire Diaries, which I didn't get into, and things like that. I mean,
that was CW, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm worried. Vampire shows on the CW haven't been great since Buffy's gone.
Yeah, I was originally really stoked about this when they said that they were going to have each season be set in a different decade, start with the 60s, go 70s. I'm honestly, there was no mention in the recent reports that mentioned Hardwick if that was still what they were doing, or if they've totally abandoned that. Especially if it's going to be Frog Sisters, is it Frog Sisters in the '60s? Are they still doing that? I don't know. I'm really curious. This may not even make it past pilot. Honestly,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. So there you go.
So the next story was the fact that we are getting a Critters TV show and a Critters movie from Sci-Fi. So they're pulling a Chucky this year, and you know, that I think it's interesting that we're getting a series from Shudder, and then we're getting a movie from Sci-Fi, but the movie from Sci-Fi could still be really good because it's got Dee Wallace in it from the original Critters movie.
Yeah, which excites me, and that's where I think we had just a little confusion where we were like, oh, the series isn't on Sci-Fi, it's showing up on Shudder now, but that's because they're obviously making this movie at the same time, and I know that announcement came at the same time that they announced the Killer Clowns film as well. So, I don't know, will the production budgets really be that much better? I mean, Sci-Fi Channel did that Deep Blue Sea too, which was god-awful, so
terrible.
that doesn't really give me much hope for this one either.
I don't
know. But,
I
mean, people seem rather forgiving with low-budget Critters. I mean, some people were, like, not on board with us being critical of that trailer. They're like, the Critters don't look that good, but I'm all down for the tone. And, you know, I still haven't seen Zombievers, and I know you said that was actually pretty fun. So, do we know who the development team is of this? Is it the same people, or is it different?
Well, it's the director of the Clans.
That's right. Okay, yeah. I haven't
Which
seen
Susie and I watched and reviewed. We just haven't put it live yet on the channel.
How was that?
It wasn't bad. It was kind of a monster movie that was more of a drama, but less monster and stuff like that. So
I've heard the title thrown around.
It was okay. Yeah. I mean, we liked the trailer for it, and then Susie really liked the movie a lot, and I thought it was good. So yeah.
Well, it's a new binge of critterness, man, for people. So I'm sure fans of the franchise, they're probably just gonna devour it all and not really care. You know, they'll be happy. So
likely so.
Indeed. So speaking of characters being devoured, The Walking Dead, long synonymous for killing off their people. People who didn't want to leave the show, now everyone's just dipping out and saying, peace, I'm sick of doing this, you know, which is kind of funny. And Denai Guerrera, she's just the most recent culprit, and we don't know if she's going to show up in a film with Rick or something, or if she is going to get killed off.
That was the rumor, that she's supposed to be joining Rick over on his 3 movies.
Yeah, but it's a Lauren Cohen situation in this case, where there's behind-the-scenes stuff where she wasn't offered as much money, she got pissed off, they're giving all the money to the likes of, to
Norman Reedus.
Norman Reedus, and then Carol, the actress who plays her. They're like the 2 new main focus of the show as far as that goes. And so, I don't know. I thought she was a terrific Michonne, having read the comics up to about where the Whisperers are coming in, which is where they're at on the show right now. But the ratings continue to dip, and people are not very compelled with this show anymore. And yet they still announced just the other day that they're planning a 3rd show, a 3rd TV show, on top of Fear the Walking Dead, on top of the movies they're developing. So, man, cart before the horse type of situation, man. I mean, I don't know. You haven't watched the show in a little while, right?
No, I haven't. And I mean, even though the show is dipping in ratings, it's still the biggest cable TV show.
Yeah,
so I mean,
period.
they're still banking on it, even though the ratings are dipping.
Yeah, it's the lowest since the first season. At this point, it has been for a little while. I've seen mixed reactions to the Alpha and Omega stuff with the Whisperers, but the people who like the show and are still watching, like Freddie and Space Squires from Bloody, he's been praising the hell out of this season, especially the second half of implementing the Whisperers and stuff. So I need to get caught up at some point, and that's why I still have one of those stream service whatever's through DirecTV, so I can still try to watch these shows from time to time. And I'm curious, but I still think it's a real bummer to lose a character like Michonne, who I thought just portrayed so well. So there you go.
And my final story was, of course, that Warner Bros. Is supposedly developing a horror movie spin-off of Aquaman surrounding the Trench.
The only horror element in the entire film, but that's where I felt like James Wan was most at home in that movie, was with that segment.
I think so,
too.
It was
dope.
And it was really cool, and the creatures are really striking and scary, so it makes sense for them to do it. It's just they need to make the movie make sense, too.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't know if Aquaman is even going to be in it, or if they would implement any other superheroes, because I don't know Aquaman very well. I don't know if there's other members of Atlantis that they could factor into the storytelling or something, or other aquatic superheroes or what, but... Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued by the concept, but since they're they're not doing Aquaman till, check it out, 2022. That'll be 4 years after the original one came out. That seems like, especially with how much DC has altered their slate lately, it seems like eons from now, and James
It needs time to be done right, though.
True, but this is like their little
Effects-wise.
stopgap, to tide people over.
Oh, I see.
You know?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
smaller budget, crank it out sooner.
Keep
and
people
keep
interested.
people interested.
And,
That's true. That
pique
makes
their
sense.
appetite. That's
So
what I'm
maybe
at
it won't
least
go
assuming.
away. Hopefully, because it could. The creatures are cool. The creatures could
They
be
were
scary.
badass. They were like one of my favorite parts of the film. So. Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited, but I'm not like I'm sighties, but I'm not like totally over the moon about it.
Yeah,
So,
like I said, I'd be really on board if it actually happens. I'm just not fully convinced that they're as stuck on the idea as they're letting on right now.
yeah, I wouldn't honestly be surprised if this idea disappears, just like so many other things have from the DC slate. But who knows? Time will tell. Speaking of revelations, you don't have to eat your words this time. No, Halloween killed it at the box office 2018. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, personally. I thought it was just okay. There were some people who adored it. There were other people who were like, H2O was better. And there were some people who I've spoken with who downright loathed it and thought it was just cash grab, suctitude, unoriginal, whatever. Nonetheless, obviously with the success that it saw, sequel was inevitable. I think that's why they didn't kill off, Laurie Strode. They're like, she'll come back. And, I'm assuming they'll kill her in another one. But do you think it's a good idea not going with the same team, going with a younger writer that I called it like I saw it? I think they're going with somebody that that creative team of Gordon Green and what's his name from Eastbound and Down, Danny McBride. I would imagine they would have commanded a pretty penny for a sequel.
Probably,
with
yeah.
the type of success that film saw, and they're going with this Scott Teems kid. He's working on 2 different Stephen King projects for Blumhouse right now. He's doing the remake of Firestarter, and then he's also doing the 4th and only unadapted novella from different seasons, which is called The Breathing Method, about this woman who is in labor, and she's in a taxi, and she gets in an accident, and her head gets sliced off, but yet she doesn't die. She's still going through the breathing method and still birthing the child. It's the weirdest in the entire different seasons, which also has Apt Pupil and Shawshank and Stand By Me. I think there's a reason why it was never adapted. I'm really curious what Scott Derrickson is going to do with that particular film. He's the one who intrigues me, not the Teams guy. But I don't know. Do you think this is Blum just deliberately going a different route, or what's your thoughts on this choice?
Well, I don't know. Who knows that they would have wanted to come back? I don't know. Maybe. Who knows what happened behind the scenes? I'll bet they wanted a more definitive ending for Michael Myers than we actually got, because the studio was like, no, you can't kill him. We got to bring him back. Look at all the energy surrounding this movie's pre-release. You know,
who knows what could have happened with pickups, reshoots, rewrites, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Halloween's never been a particularly favorite franchise of mine. I wouldn't even put it in my top 10. I don't think so.
Yeah, me neither. Honestly, the score's cool.
So yeah, I just if it happens in whatever way it happens, and I'll watch it, but I'm not like screaming about it one way or the other.
Yeah, they'll be unloading dump trucks of money on Blum's front lawn, and that's about it. But no, I'm not pumped for this. I could really care less either way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sorry.
Well, I think that pretty much does it, you guys. That's the opinion on the last of our stories. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Horror Show News with Booze.
Gracias.
Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click that like button and subscribe if you haven't, if you want to see more. And while you're down there, if you want to leave a comment at what you liked, what you're excited about, there's also a link to the Patreon in the description box if you want to join up and support us a little bit more directly and actually give us movies to watch and review.
Tell us what to do.
Tell us what to do, exactly. So, thanks very much for watching. I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias. I've been Jaime Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.